People often ask me, is there something that we can fish in the wintertime that isn't so boring? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. Hi there, welcome to the Bass Fishing Life. I'm your host, Steve Rogers. Hey, make sure that you hit that subscribe button and punch that notification bell. It helps us out here on the channel so much. Thank you for that. Well, the last several videos that we have filmed here on the channel, we've talked about the 3 places that you can find fish in the wintertime. We have talked about different techniques for fishing in the wintertime, whether that is a small swim bait. We talked about dragging in the last video, and I had warned you that dragging is effective, but it is kind of boring to do, so you really got to be in the right mindset to pull it off. So is there a bait that we can fish in the wintertime that keeps us moving, has got a little bit more action, yet is still going to work? So today I want to talk about a flat-sided crankbait. Now when I say a flat-sided crankbait, I'm not talking about your traditional lipless crankbaits like a red-eye shad or a rattle trap, stuff like that. When I say flat-sided crankbait, I'm referring to a traditional deep diving crankbait that doesn't have a round body. Okay, it's still a deep diver, but the sides are flat. Okay, almost like you took a round bodied crankbait and just kind of held it on a belt sander. You get that flat side to it. So flat-sided crankbaits provide the angler with something totally different. Now, we mentioned in our last video that bass this time of year really rely on their lateral line, that kind of sixth sense, you might say, as far as feeling and understanding what's going around them. Even if they are in a clear water lake or reservoir, pond, whatever it might be, that lateral line is so critically important. Now, a flat-sided crankbait provides a different type of signature vibration than your traditional round-bodied crankbaits. A flat-sided crankbait is going to pick up some bites where maybe a round-bodied crankbait will not. As a matter of fact, if you search in YouTube or Google search flat-sided crankbait, Kevin Van Dam has got some wonderful videos out there on flat-sided crankbaits, and if I remember, I'll go ahead and link those down in the description below. He really does a nice job of explaining them. Okay, he even says that if he goes through an area and he picks up a bite or two on the regular crankbait, that he will come back through that same spot with a flat side. Now, a flat side is one of those, if you're asking yourself, well, when should I throw a flat-sided crankbait? Just a real easy rule of thumb is to use a flat-sided crankbait when conditions are tough, when the bite is tough. Those bluebird days, those cold water days, those post-cold front days, when that bluebird sky is just epically difficult to get a bite. That is when a flat side works really well, and that's when I would pull them out. As far as a lot of you that live in the northern states like I do, we often this time of year have a hard water affliction. Okay, that ice gets on the water temps are about as low as they can possibly go, and things get super difficult. I find that the flat sides work in winter conditions a little bit more in that mid-state range or some of those southern state ranges where we aren't getting the ice or we aren't getting those water temperatures that are just about to freeze. I do like to throw them on rock banks whenever I can find it. Remember, we talked about rock banks are one of the 3 places that winter bass will hang out. So if you live in some highland reservoirs, your typical table rock lakes, those types of things, a flat-sided crankbait in the wintertime can really be the ticket for a great day. Now that I mentioned table rock, for those of you that have fished that lake in the wintertime or know people that have lived down in that area, and I fish Table Rock Lake actually quite a bit in all times of the year. Table Rock Lake has a cult following for round body crankbaits like a wiggle wart in the wintertime on that particular lake, and it works. Okay, Dale Hollow is another one where that kind of seems to be very much a thing, but a traditional highland reservoir like a Table Rock Lake is a great place to throw a flat sided crankbait. So if you do not have any of those, I definitely recommend picking some up. And many of them on the market have no rattles. Okay, so you're just relying on that different vibration signature because of those flat sides. So that is a crankbait that you're going to want to have a box of them in your boat. You can use them in the summertime, spring, fall when the bite is tough, or as a follow-up bait to a traditional crankbait. But definitely they are an excellent cold water bait. So if you want to get out there this winter and catch some fish in those tough conditions, and dragging is something that is just too slow for you, I recommend getting that flat-sided crankbait and see what kind of luck that you have. Make sure you post some of your pictures down here in the comments. And hey, don't forget to get out there and change somebody's life today. For the Bass Fishing Life, I'm your host, Steve Rogers.